There are a couple of things that you need to do every single day, week, month, and quarter to be able to run a 7-figure wholesale organization. And today, what I'm going to do is break down exactly what you should be doing step by step so you can run a 7-figure real estate investing business. So if you're new to this channel, welcome. And if you're already subscribed, welcome back. You know that all we do is teach wholesalers, flippers, individual sales reps how to hit 7 figures a month wholesaling and flipping real estate. And I'm going to show you guys the exact cadence that I've used and my students have used to hit multiple 7 figures per year. So when we look at cadences, this is going to be the tempo. There's a really good book called The 7 Disciplines of Execution, and it talks about building habits with your team. And so there's going to be some things that we need to do very frequently, some things we need to do less frequently to get us in alignment to hit our goal. So when I break this out, I'm going to break this out into daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly. So first thing, when we look at our daily cadences, this is to make sure that we're not going off the rails too much. Now, we aren't going to do a daily cadence of how many leads do we get? What's our lead to qualified, qualified to appointment, appointment to offer, so forth and so on, because that's going to fluctuate. Some days you might get 6 leads. Some days you might get 3 leads. Some days you might get 15. It's going to fluctuate a little bit. But what shouldn't fluctuate is your sales team's performance. So with our daily cadence, we break it out into acquisitions and SDRs. Now, not all of you guys will have a SDR, sales development rep, or a lead manager, but if you do, you want to rock a daily cadence with them. So if you're doing acquisitions, there's a couple of things that we're going to go over. Number one are going to be the KPIs. And my KPIs that I track for my team, I want them to make 120 outbound dials. This is for a virtual model. 120 outbound dials, 120 minutes of talk time, and 2 offers. So those are going to be the KPIs there. Let's just put it over here. 120 dials, 120 minutes of talk time, and 2 offers. I know that that will give me on a weekly basis, roughly 10 offers a week, roughly 2 contracts per rep. Those are the KPIs that I'm expecting. Now with the SDR, it's going to be the same thing. I want to start out with KPIs and very similar metrics. 120 dials, 120 minutes of talk time. That's going to be talk. The only difference is 2 appointments set. Now, the lead managers are going to be going through all the past leads that have maybe not been hit, the 30-day follow-ups, 90-day follow-ups, the opportunities without offers. They're going to try to get those back into appointments. And so every single day, we're going to be hitting them right in the morning, 7:45, we kick it off. What are your KPIs? Now, I'm going to go over what this daily cadence looks like. So the first thing, again, we're going to hit KPIs. Second thing that we do is we want to see the most likely to close. So what deals did you talk to yesterday? Or what leads did you talk to yesterday that are the most likely to close? Maybe you need some sort of objection handler. Maybe there was a logistical objection that you had a question on. It might be something that's on the purchase agreement that they need changed, anything like that. We're going to cover those. Now, for us personally, we like to start out with a little bit of gratitude. I think it sets the tempo for the day, saying, hey, something that we're grateful for. And then we jump into sales training. So with this, I break it out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. This is my cadence. I want to do role play. Let's do RP. Role play Monday and Wednesday. I'm going to do call review on Tuesday and Thursday. And then Friday, we're going to do objection handling. So there you go. That's going to be our schedule. So we hit KPIs. What are your most likely to close? That's going to help us understand what we need to role play or listen to on the call reviews. We go over a little bit of gratitude and then we just jump right into sales training. Now, this should be about 45 minutes. If you have a setter and a closer team, ideally you have one person training the setters and another person training the acquisitions. I don't recommend that you train them both at the same time because they're working on completely different things. The acquisitions team, they're going to glaze over when you're talking about how to set an appointment. And the SDRs, it's going to be like completely irrelevant when you're teaching them how to objection handle. So ideally those calls are separate with 2 separate people. That way, if you are the sales manager, you're not just like consistently just in training with your team for 3 hours a day. So those are going to be the daily things that we need to do on a regular basis. Now let's talk about the weekly cadences. So step 1, I want to make sure that I'm running an L10 meeting. Now what an L10 meeting is, we call it our goal versus actual. So how many leads did we set out to hit? How many did we actually get? How many qualified leads? How many did we actually get? Appointments, offers, contracts closed, so forth and so on. Let's say, for example, that I know that I need to get 2 contracts per week, right? And let's say in order to do that, I need, let's just use some numbers here. Let's say 20 leads. Let's say 17 qualified leads. Let's say 15 appointments, 14 offers, and let's call it 2 contracts and 2 closed. Okay, so that's my metric that I need to hit. So what we're going to do is we set this on the quarter of this is how many leads, qualified leads, appointments, offers, contracts closed that we need to get on a weekly basis. Now, on Monday, first thing in the morning, I meet with my CMO and my director of dispositions. We look at all these numbers. So let's say I got 20 leads. I actually hit my leads goal, but I only had 14 qualified leads. Let's say I had, let's call it 10 appointments, 8 offers, 1 contract. So we had a bad week. Right. So if that's the case, I know I hit my lead goal. I don't need to get more leads the next week. But why was my lead to qualified so low? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to direct my team's attention to fixing that one number. So I'm going to say, hey guys, I'll put this inside the chat. Say, hey guys, we need to get 3 more leads from last week qualified. Out of those, we need to book 5 more appointments. So if there was somebody that you spoke to that you didn't book an appointment with, you think they maybe were on the fence, go book that appointment. And then we also need to get another, I think, 6 offers, and that should result in another contract. So 1 more contract. And I am going to stay on my team. This is the most important part, because if you just have these metrics, you don't do anything with them, it doesn't actually help you. So what I do is on Monday, I let my team know, hey, these are the metrics we need to hit. You guys go focus on this part of the CRM, the leads that were not qualified, and then let me know once we've got 3 qualified leads, 5 more appointments, and 6 more offers. That'll be the metric that they need to go hit. And I'm watching that, and every time I see an appointment, okay, cool, we've got 5 more. All right, another one. Now we need 4 more. And they're all competing with each other to be able to hit that metric. That's how we stay on cadence to hit our quarterly goal. That's how you should be running it as a sales manager. Now, one more thing we should do on the weekly is we need to do appointment reviews on Friday. This is going to be the last day of the week. So my appointment reviews, those are going to go over all of the past appointments that I've had by outcome. If they no-showed, why did they no-show? If they were attended, what was the outcome? So what this will do is, especially if you have a lead manager team, really only if you have a lead manager team, this is going to help them understand what's a good appointment, what's a bad appointment. And if you're having show-up rates, you can figure out why that's happening. Maybe your appointment set to offer is too far out. Maybe they're not getting calendar confirmations. You are able to fix all of these things. So we do our appointment reviews every week. And then the last thing we do is going to be a pipeline. That's one word, review. And all we're doing with the pipeline review is we're just going over all of our active deals that are in the pipeline, what still needs to happen before they close. And when we do this, we also look at what's our average contract to close, how many average offers do we get per contract, and what are any of our blind spots that are going to stop us from being able to close a deal. Might be talking to a lender, something a lender said that was a little bit sketchy on a novation, things like that we can help problem solve to make sure all the deals are closing on time. Okay, so we have our L10 on Monday, we have our appointment reviews on Friday. You can do your pipeline review anytime in the week. Really, you can do any of these at any time of the week. I just prefer the L10 on Monday, right when the week is fresh, to give us a really good push for the rest of the week on what we need to focus on. So those are our weekly cadences that we need. Now, outside of meetings, I always like to do, I call it my 7-day CRM audit. And I will literally go through all of the leads that I had in the previous week and look at what was preventing us from being able to book appointments or get contracts. I just clean up my entire CRM, make sure the admin's done right, so I'm making decisions accurately on accurate data. Now we have our monthly. Monthly's pretty simple. All I do with monthly is I do my 30-day protocol. What that is I look at how many leads did the rep get assigned. Out of those, how many were contacted, how many turned into apps, how many turned into contracts, closed, and then I look at projected revenue per rep. So that's the first part. After that, I always ask for leadership feedback. My leadership feedback is pretty simple. I asked them, I won't even write this down. I'll just tell you guys. So I'll ask them, what would you like me to start doing? What would you like me to stop doing? And what would you like me to keep doing? And I ask the same thing back from them. What would you like to start doing? What would you like to stop doing? What would you like to keep doing? We have a little bottom part that says, hey, where are you in relationship to your goals? And then I will give them coaching feedback. What this does is I guarantee them a specific amount of leads. They need to guarantee me back a specific amount of contracts and closed deals, right? I need to make sure that their ROAS is healthy. They're getting at least a 3x ROAS, ideally a 5x ROAS. Anything over that, maybe they can handle a little bit more leads. My 30-day protocol is really simple. And then with my SDRs, if you do a 30-day protocol with your SDRs, I recommend only doing that if they're struggling. If they're doing well, it might not be the best use of your time. If they're struggling, you're just looking at dials, talk time, appointments set, and appointments attended. So that way you know that they're actually booking you good appointments that are showing up and ready to hear an offer. And then the last thing we're going to go over is quarterly. Now we do a quarterly and an annual, but the annual, it's essentially the same thing, just planning for the year. Our quarterly planning is where we break out our rocks. Okay, so what we do is we look at all of our metrics from the previous quarter. And then we set our goal for, let's say Q2, we just did one. So we looked at all our metrics in Q2. Then we set our goal for Q3. And we say, okay, our lead to qualified was 80%, qualified to appointment was 60, show up rate was 90, offer rate, or we made offers on all 90%. We had 25% offer to contract and a 70% contract to close. So if we want to do 200K a month next quarter, how many leads do we need to get in order to do that? So we set that up. That's the first thing. And then we look at where our biggest holes were. So let's say, for example, last quarter, we had a 50% lead to contact. Now we go, that is going to be the sales manager's rock is my lead to contact needs to increase by, let's call it 30%. Now I'm going to break out how I'm going to do that. So I might say I need to automate my speed to lead, right? That might be the first thing. I need to check my number health, maybe rotate the phone numbers, right? There's a million different things that we can do, but that'll be my one rock to make sure that that is the one thing. Now, I'll give you guys an example of something that I had a rock for this quarter is overall lead to offer was low. And it really started at like appointment set to offer. And so there was too big of a gap. I went and problem solved it. I was like, what's happening? Most of them are doing no-shows. So there was just a gap in between it. So my metric for my team is going to be speed to offer, and speed to offer under 24 hours. We can pull a report that shows us what our speed to offer is under 24 hours. And that's my entire thing that I'm focusing on for this one quarter. Then we have marketing. Marketing is getting 20 leads a week at $175 CPL. Right? That would be his metric. And then we have dispo, contract to close. We need to get 3 offers per contract. Every single week, we are going to go back and make sure that we are on track to hit those metrics. So we have our daily cadences to make sure the team's performance is dialed in. We have our weekly to make sure, hey, we're not going too far off the rails. We have our monthly to make sure that our team's hitting KPIs, and then our quarterly to have the overall big planning. Now, if you notice what this is doing is we're starting big and we're going granular and granular and granular until we have it so dialed in that there's no room for error. The only way that you can mess this up is if you're not doing the work that you're supposed to be doing. And I have all of this inside of an SOP document that I only give to my advanced inner circle members. If you are wanting to accelerate your business, you're wanting to get to 7 figures, or you're running a 7-figure business, you just want to be a better sales manager, I will drop a link to apply for our advanced inner circle below. And if you're not quite there yet and you just want some basic training, we have a school community. It's dirt cheap for anybody that just wants to understand their sales process better and get to the point to where they want to start scaling their business to 7 figures a year. That's all we have for today. I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye, everybody.